The market of chains. The marketplace was alive with cruel noise. Iron cages stood in long rows, and inside those cages sat creatures from many worlds. Some were strong, with chains locked tight around their arms. Some were weak, with empty eyes that had already given up. Traders shouted prices, laughing as if they were selling simple goods and not living beings. The air smelled of rust, sweat, and hopelessness. Among the crowd walked a human traveler. His cloak was old, and dust clung to his boots. He did not speak. He only watched. Every step he took, the voices of the traders grew louder, as if trying to force him to look, to buy, to own. But his eyes searched for something else, something the crowd could not see. At the far end of the market, the last cage stood almost forgotten. Inside it lay a girl, small and fragile, her skin pale with sickness. She coughed softly, her thin body shaking. Even the chains around her wrists looked heavy, as if they were crushing what little life she had left. The auctioneer raised his hand and laughed. This one? Worthless. She cannot work, she cannot walk. She will die before sunrise. Who will take her? The crowd laughed with him. Some shouted cruel jokes, others turned away, not even wasting a second glance. Nobody wanted the sick alien slave. To them, she was nothing but wasted space. But the human stopped walking. His eyes rested on her, not with pity, but with something different.
Quiet interest, the auctioneer noticed.
He smirked and shouted louder, "You, human. Even you would not waste coin on her. She is sickness, she is trouble. Leave her where she lies." Yet the human did not move away. His hand stayed still at his sides, his face unreadable. The girl, half-conscious, felt a shadow fall over her cage. Her weak eyes opened just enough to see the figure standing there. For the first time in hours, or maybe days, her gaze locked on someone who did not laugh at her, someone who did not turn away. The crowd grew restless. "Move on, human," one alien barked. "Choose a strong one, not this dying scrap." Another spat on the ground. "She is cursed. Only a fool would touch her." But the human still stood. His silence was heavier than any words. The girl's heart beat faster, though her body was too weak to show it. Why was he staring? Why did he not walk away like the others? She tried to speak, but her throat was dry, her voice too faint. Only a soft whisper came, lost in the noise of the market. The auctioneer grew angry. He slammed his hand against the cage. The girl jumped weakly at the sound. "Enough! No one will buy her!" "Take her away. Throw her to the streets. Let her sickness finish the job." The traders laughed again. But before the guards could unlock the cage to drag her out, the human finally moved. Slowly, he raised his hand. The laughter stopped. The crowd went quiet. The auctioneer blinked. "What is this? You want her?" The human gave no answer, only a small nod. The crowd exploded with laughter, louder than before. "The human is mad," someone shouted. "He chooses death," another barked. "Let him waste his coin." The girl's eyes widened. She could not believe what she saw. Her heart whispered a question she dared not speak. Why? The human traveler said nothing, but his actions spoke louder than all the shouting voices around him. He had chosen her, the slave no one wanted, the girl who was too weak to stand, the life that everyone else had already thrown away. As the chains were unlocked and the girl was dragged toward him, the crowd mocked, their voices sharp with cruel joy. But the human's face never changed. His eyes never left the fragile figure trembling in front of him. Somewhere deep inside her, under the sickness and pain, a small spark lit. A question burned brighter with each heartbeat. Why would anyone choose me? She did not know it yet. But this moment would change everything. And as the human placed his cloak around her shoulders, shielding her from the cold air of the market, the crowd's laughter faded into the distance. For the first time, the girl felt something she had forgotten long ago. Hope. But hope was dangerous in a world built on chains. The market was still buzzing with cruel laughter even after the human raised his hand. No one could understand it. To them it was madness. Why would a healthy man choose a broken slave who was close to death? The auctioneer rubbed his hands together, pleased that even a worthless life could bring him coin. "Very well," he said loudly. "The human chooses the sick one. Take her, fool, and may her death not stain your hands." The crowd cheered mockingly, but their voices were full of insult, not respect. They saw it as comedy, a strange show to entertain them. Some even followed the human as he led the fragile girl away, just to laugh at him more. The girl stumbled with every step. Her thin legs barely carried her. The human did not push her forward like the guards used to. Instead, he slowed his pace, walking beside her. His hand reached out once when she almost fell, steadying her, but still he spoke no word. She could not stop the question rising inside her. Why me? She coughed again, her chest burning. Her people had abandoned her. Strangers had laughed at her. Traders had nearly thrown her away like rotten food. Yet here was this man, this quiet human, guiding her gently through the noise of the market. When they reached the edge of the crowd, a tall alien merchant blocked their path. His face was sharp, his teeth like broken knives. "Human," he sneered. "You waste good coin. That one will be dead before the moon rises. Better to return her and choose another." The human looked at him, calm and steady. His eyes did not blink. Slowly he shook his head. The alien spat at the ground. "Fool, you will regret this." Then he stepped aside. The girl's heart raced again, though her body felt weaker with every moment. She had seen the look in the human's eyes when he faced the merchant. It was not fear. It was not even anger, it was something she could not name. Strength, perhaps, or maybe a kind of stubbornness she had never seen before. They left the market behind, walking down a quiet road lined with broken stones. The laughter of the crowd faded into the distance, but the girl could still hear it in her head, echoing like chains rattling. At last, her legs gave way. She fell to her knees, coughing hard. Blood touched her lips. She thought this was the end. But the human did not curse or strike her like others would have done. He bent down, lifted her carefully into his arms, and carried her as if she weighed nothing. His steps were slow, steady, unshaken. The girl pressed her face against his chest, too weak to speak, too tired to resist. She thought of the chains she had worn all her life, the cruelty of the traders, the silence of her people who had abandoned her. And now this stranger carried her without asking anything in return. Why? The human carried her to a small barn outside the city walls. It was quiet there, the smell of hay and old wood filling the air. A simple place, nothing grand, nothing rich. But compared to the cages of the market, it felt like another world. He laid her gently on a rough bed of straw covered with cloth. She expected cold chains to follow. She expected cruelty, as always. But instead, he placed a blanket over her thin body, tucking it around her shoulders so she would not shiver. The girl's weak eyes opened slowly. She looked at him, her lips trembling. Why help me?" The words escaped her in a broken whisper. The human sat beside her bed. For a long time he said nothing. The silence stretched until it almost felt heavy. Finally, in a voice low and steady, he spoke. "Because you are not nothing." Her breath caught. Simple words, yet she had never heard them before. To her people, she had been nothing. To the traders, she had been nothing. To the crowd, she was less than nothing. Yet this stranger, this human, had chosen her when no one else did. Her eyes filled with tears she did not understand. She turned her face away, afraid to show weakness. But inside, her heart beat faster. A spark she thought long dead flickered faintly. Hope. Outside the barn, the night deepened. Strange shadows moved in the distance, watching, waiting. But inside, the girl drifted into sleep, the warmth of the blanket around her and the human silent presence beside her. The market had mocked him. The merchants had called him a fool, but the human did not care. He had made his choice, and that choice, simple as it seemed, was something no one else could understand. The barn was silent except for the sound of shallow breathing. The girl lay on the rough bed, her body trembling beneath the blanket. Every cough shook her chest like a hammer striking weak glass. She had been close to death many times before, but tonight felt different, not because of her sickness, but because of the human sitting quietly beside her. He had not left her side since bringing her here. He made no chains, no threats, no cruel demands. He simply sat, a silent guard in the dim light of the barn. His shadow stretched long across the wall, unmoving like a shield against the darkness outside. The girl could not understand it. She had been owned by traders, beaten by guards, mocked by strangers. To all of them, she was a burden, a mistake, a thing better forgotten. Yet here was this man, this human, who watched over her as if she mattered. Her weak eyes shifted toward him. His face was calm, though the fire in the small lantern beside the bed flickered across his features. He looked tired, worn by travel and hardship, but there was something steady in his gaze, something unbroken. For a long time, she studied him in silence. Then, with effort, she whispered, "Why? Why stay?" The human did not answer right away. He leaned forward slightly, adjusting the blanket around her shoulders. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but firm, because no one should face the night alone. The words struck her heart like a spark on dry wood. She had faced so many nights alone, cold, chained, unwanted. But tonight someone sat beside her. She turned her face toward the ceiling, blinking away tears she did not want to show. Her chest tightened with another cough. Pain ripped through her body. She thought she might collapse, but the human was there instantly, holding the cup of water to her lips. She drank slowly, the cool liquid easing her throat. When she looked at him again, her eyes carried the question she could not speak. "Why do you care?" The human only watched her in silence, but his silence carried weight. It was not the silence of someone who ignored her. It was the silence of someone who listened. Outside, the night was restless. The wind pushed against the wooden walls of the barn. In the distance, faint voices echoed, too faint to make out, yet sharp enough to stir unease. Shadows moved in the fields, long and thin under the moonlight. The girl noticed them too. Her body tensed. Her weak fingers clutched the blanket tighter. They will come," she whispered, fear shaking her voice. The human's eyes flicked toward the sound. He reached into his cloak and set a small knife on the table beside the bed. It was not much against the dangers of the galaxy, but the gesture was enough. He had heard the voices too. He had seen the shadows. And he was ready. The girl studied him with new eyes. He had no army, no weapons of power, no chains of command. Yet he sat beside her as if he was enough to protect her from the whole universe. For the first time in her life, she felt a strange sense of safety. Fragile, maybe even foolish, but real. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the feeling sink into her bones. Then her voice, faint but steady, broke the silence. "You are different." The human glanced at her, one eyebrow lifting slightly. "Different?" She nodded weakly. "Not like them. Not like the ones who owned me. You look at me, not through me." The human said nothing, but his gaze softened just for a moment. The girl felt warmth spread through her chest, though her body was weak. It was not the warmth of health or strength. It was the warmth of being seen, of not being invisible anymore. The lantern flame flickered again, throwing shadows across the barn. The voices outside grew faint, then faded into silence. For tonight, at least, the barn was safe. Her eyes grew heavy. Sleep pulled at her, though fear always fought against it. Sleep in her life had been dangerous. It left her vulnerable. But tonight was different. Tonight, a human sat beside her bed, guarding her through the night. As her eyelids closed, she whispered one last question, barely audible. "Will you be here when I wake?" The human leaned forward slightly, his voice firm and steady in the quiet barn. "Yes." And with that promise, the girl drifted into sleep. The human sat still, watching her breathe, listening to the faint rhythm of her fragile life. His hand rested near the knife, his eyes never fully leaving the door. Outside, the wind carried whispers of danger, but inside the barn, for the first time, there was peace. It was a fragile peace. A peace that could shatter at any moment. But for now, it was enough. Beside the bed, the human waited. The barn was quiet, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence before a storm. The girl slept restlessly on the rough bed, her breath shallow, her body shaking with weakness. The human sat close, a silent guardian, his hand resting near the small knife on the table. He listened. He always listened. The wind pressed against the old wooden walls, making them creak and groan. But beneath the sound of the wind, there were other noises, faint, careful, voices that did not belong to the night. The human's eyes narrowed. Someone was out there. The girl stirred in her sleep, her lips moving with broken words. She dreamed of cages, of cruel laughter, of chains that cut into her skin. Then she woke suddenly, coughing hard, her body arching with pain. The human was at her side at once, holding the cup of water, steadying her until the fit passed. When she finally caught her breath, her wide eyes locked on his, and she whispered so faintly it was almost lost, "They will come." The human tilted his head. "Who?" Her voice trembled. "The ones who owned me, the ones who lost me. They will not forgive. They will come for me." The human studied her face, pale and frightened, and then looked back toward the door. He did not argue. He did not tell her she was wrong. He had heard the whispers too. The girl pulled the blanket tighter around herself as if cloth could protect her from what was coming. Her thin fingers shook. She had seen how hunters worked. They did not forget. They did not forgive. And a runaway, even a sick and dying one, was still property in their eyes. Her heart pounded painfully. She had seen it before. Slaves dragged from hiding places, beaten until they could not move, their bodies left as examples. She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. "You should not have chosen me," she whispered. "Now they will come for you too." The human leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "Let them come." The girl opened her eyes, shocked. He spoke as if he did not fear them at all, as if he was not one man against many. Her lips parted, but no words came. How could he face such danger with such calm? The lantern flickered. Shadows stretched across the barn walls. For a moment she thought she saw shapes moving in the dark corners, watching. Her chest tightened with fear. She whispered again, desperate. "You do not understand. They are stronger than you. More than you. If they find me, they will take me. And you?" The human cut her words short with a look. Not harsh, not angry, but firm. "You are not theirs anymore." Her breath caught. Could it be true? Could a few words break chains that had bound her for so long? She wanted to believe, but fear clung to her like a second skin. Outside, the faint crunch of footsteps on dry soil carried through the night. The human's head turned sharply toward the sound. He rose from the chair, slow and controlled, and crossed the barn floor to the door. His hand hovered near the handle, but he did not open it. He only stood there, listening. The girl's body shook harder. Her eyes darted toward the shadows near the window, toward the sliver of moonlight outside. Every whisper of the wind felt like a voice. Every creak of the wood felt like a warning. Finally, she could not hold it in. Her voice broke the silence, filled with fear. "They will kill you. Please, please leave me. If they find me, they will only take me back. But if they find you with me..." The human turned back to her. His expression had not changed, but his eyes held something that silenced her words. He walked back, sat again beside the bed, and spoke quietly. "I will not leave." Her throat closed. For a moment she could not breathe. Nobody had ever said those words to her. Not her people. Not the traitors. Not anyone. To all of them, leaving her had always been the easiest choice. Tears welled in her eyes. She wanted to argue, to tell him it was hopeless, but the words died in her mouth. She could only stare at him. This strange human who chose to sit beside her while the whole night whispered of danger. The footsteps outside faded into silence, but the fear remained heavy in the air. She knew it was not over. They were watching, waiting. The human reached for the lantern, turning down its flame until only a soft glow filled the barn. Then he rested his hand on the knife again, his gaze fixed on the door. The girl lay back, trembling, her heart racing. Fear still clawed at her, but somewhere beneath the fear was something else, something she could not name. His words echoed in her mind. "I will not leave." She closed her eyes, holding on to that promise as tightly as she held on to the blanket. Sleep came slowly, heavy with fear, but this time it came with a strange comfort. Beside the bed, the human sat in silence, waiting. Outside in the dark fields, the whispers of fear moved closer, carried by the night. The morning came slowly, with pale light seeping through the cracks of the barn. The girl stirred weakly on the bed, her cough echoing in the quiet space. The human was still there, seated beside her, his eyes heavy with no sleep. He had not left her side for even a moment. For a while, silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of her shallow breathing. Then, as though the weight of the night had forced her to speak, the girl whispered, "You should know. Why they will not stop hunting me." The human glanced at her, calm as always. He waited. She swallowed hard, her thin fingers twisting the blanket. "They did not sell me because I was sick. Not only because of that. They sold me because I was dangerous." The human's brow lifted slightly, but he said nothing. Her voice trembled as she continued. "I was born into a house of power. My people are proud, strict, cruel. Bloodlines mean everything to them. I was different. The sickness came when I was a child, and with it strange things I could not control." Her eyes clouded with memory. "When my anger grew, fires would burn. When my fear rose, things would break. Once I screamed, and the walls of my home cracked like glass. They called me cursed. My family, my own mother, Said I was ashamed of our blood. Tears slipped down her pale cheeks. She turned her face away, ashamed even to confess. They put chains on me not to keep me from running, but to keep me from awakening. The iron dampened what was inside me. It made me weak, made me small so they would never fear me again. That is the truth of my chains. The barn fell silent. The human studied her for a long time, his expression unreadable. Finally, she dared to look at him. Now do you see? I am not worth saving. To them I am a curse. To you I am danger. You should leave me before they come back. Before I hurt you, but the human did not move. His voice came slow, steady. You are not danger. You are possibility. Her breath caught. She stared at him, unable to understand. He was the first to hear her truth and not recoil in fear. The human leaned back slightly, his gaze never leaving her. Your chains were made to silence you, to make you believe you were weak. But you are not weak. You are alive. His words settled over her like a weight she did not know how to carry. Her chest ached with a mix of fear and hope. For a long time she said nothing. Then in a whisper she asked the question that burned inside her. Why do you believe in me? The human's answer was simple. Because no one else does. She turned her face to the side, tears filling her eyes again. Hope was dangerous. She knew it too well. But something inside her, buried deep under years of chains, began to stir. The barn door creaked suddenly, making her flinch. The human was on his feet at once, knife in hand. But it was only the wind. Still, the sound reminded her that time was short. They will not let me go, she whispered. Even if you fight, they will keep coming. Do you not understand? I am not just a slave. I am a key, a weapon. To them I am something to control or to destroy. The human stood at the door, listening to the wind, his back straight. Without turning, he said, Then let them come. I will not give you back. Her heart slammed against her ribs. His words were madness, and yet they filled her with more strength than she had felt in years. The morning light grew brighter, but shadows still moved at the edge of the fields. She could see them through the cracks in the barn wall, dark shapes waiting, watching. Her chains might have been broken, but the hunters would never stop. Her voice broke the silence again, softer now. If I cannot control it, if it comes back, will you still stay? The human turned at last. His gaze met hers, calm, steady, unshaken. Yes, the girl's chest tightened. She felt something stirring inside her again, something that had been buried under sickness, fear, and iron. A warmth, a spark. It frightened her, but it also felt alive, alive in a way she had not felt since she was a child. Outside, the whispers grew louder. The hunters were moving closer. The girl closed her eyes, whispering to herself, Not chains. Not curse, possibility. She did not know what would happen when they came. She did not know if she could control what lived inside her, but for the first time she wanted to try. And the human, the strange traveler who chose her when no one else did, sat beside her once more, waiting. The sun had sunk below the horizon, leaving the barn and the surrounding fields bathed in silver moonlight. Shadows stretched long and strange, twisting with every movement of the wind. Inside, the girl lay on the bed, trembling. She could feel it. Something was coming. The human sat beside her, his eyes scanning every shadow outside the wooden walls. The knife was in his hand now, its blade reflecting the faint light. His calmness was almost frightening, as if danger could not touch him. Then they arrived. From the fields, a sound came first, a low, grinding thrum of many feet moving over dry earth. The girl's heart began to race. She pressed her back into the rough straw, clutching the blanket. They're here, she whispered, her voice shaking. The human's jaw tightened. Stay behind me. Through the cracks of the barn, dark figures emerged, tall, armored, and silent. One by one, they surrounded the building. Their eyes glowed faintly in the night, alien light that burned through the darkness. There were too many to count, too many to fight with just a knife. And yet the human did not flinch. The girl's breath caught. We can't fight them. There's no way. He turned his head, his calm gaze meeting hers. You are not powerless, and I am not afraid. A sudden harsh knock rattled the barn door. The girl jumped. Another knock. Louder. The voices of the warriors, rough and alien, carried through the wood. Open the door. A deep voice growled. The girl belongs to us. Do not test our patience. The human's hand tightened on the knife. He did not answer. Another shadow appeared at a window, pressing a glowing face against the wooden frame. The girl shrank back, fear burning in her chest. These were no ordinary hunters. They were warriors, trained, deadly, relentless. The leader stepped forward, taller and more terrifying than the others. His armor shimmered under the moonlight, and in his hand he held a strange staff that seemed to hum with power. "Step aside, human," he demanded. "She is not yours to protect." The human rose slowly, his stance steady like a mountain unshaken by wind. "She is with me," he said simply. The leader laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "Then you will die with her." The girl felt her body freeze. Her weak limbs trembled with fear. She had never seen power like this. She had never faced so many at once. But something inside her stirred. A spark, a tiny pulse of something she had thought lost. The warriors pressed closer. The moonlight revealed their weapons, long and cruel. Their eyes never left the barn's interior. She felt trapped, a small, fragile creature surrounded by monsters. And yet, the human did not move, not an inch. His knife was ready, his eyes calm, steady. "I will not let you touch her," he said. A tense silence fell. Even the wind seemed to stop. The shadows of the warriors pressed against the barn, waiting. Then a low growl came from the girl's throat, almost unnoticeable. She did not understand it herself. It was not anger, not yet, but a response. Something inside her, something buried for years, was stirring. The human noticed. His eyes flicked toward her, a spark of recognition in his gaze. He did not speak, but he understood. Something powerful, something dangerous was awake inside her. The leader of the warriors raised his staff. Energy crackled around it, a sign that they were ready to strike. "Last chance," he said. "Give us the girl." The human's voice was calm, almost casual. "Not happening." Suddenly, the girl felt it. A strange heat, a light, a pulse that came from deep within. Her hands trembled, and the air around her seemed to shift. The warriors staggered slightly, sensing something unnatural. The human stayed close, ready to protect her, but he did not stop her. He knew what was coming. He had chosen her, not only to save her, but to witness what the world had long feared, what she had long been taught to hide. Outside, the warriors hesitated, unsure. The air around the barn shimmered faintly, as if the night itself recognized her power. The leader's eyes narrowed. "Control her," he shouted, his voice full of command and fear. The girl's breath caught. She looked at the human. His hand brushed lightly against hers, a silent signal. "You are not alone. Trust yourself." For the first time in her life, she did not feel small. She did not feel weak. The chains of her past, the fear of her sickness, all of it seemed to burn away in a pulse of awakening. The warriors stepped back, cautious now. Their confidence was shaking. Something about this girl, this frail, sick slave, had changed, and it terrified them. The human's calm, steady presence gave her courage. His words from before echoed in her mind. "You are not danger. You are possibility." The night held its breath. The barn stood small and fragile, but inside a quiet, dangerous power was rising. The warriors outside realized too late that one human and one fragile alien could change the entire night. The girl's eyes glowed faintly, her body trembling as the power within her awakened. And the human, steady beside her, prepared for the battle that had already begun, not with weapons but with courage, trust, and something far greater than fear. The barn trembled under the silent tension outside. The alien warriors had surrounded it, their glowing eyes watching every shadow, every movement. Inside, the girl lay on the bed, pale but no longer fragile. Her breathing had steadied, and the pulse of power within her had begun to hum like a living thing. The human sat beside her, calm as ever, knife in hand, ready for the fight he knew was coming. He had chosen her when no one else would. Now he would defend her with every ounce of courage he possessed. The leader of the alien warriors raised his staff, energy crackling like lightning in the darkness. "Give her to us," he commanded, his voice cold and sharp. "She belongs to our bloodline. You cannot stop us." The human did not rise. He only spoke steady and unwavering. "She is not yours. She never was." The leader snarled, a sound that made the barn walls vibrate. "Foolish human, you are one against hundreds. Step aside or die." The girl's hands trembled slightly, but the warmth of power surged within her. She looked at the human, and in his calm, unwavering gaze she found something she had never known before. Trust. She trusted him completely, more than she had trusted anyone in her life. "You do not understand," she whispered, her voice trembling but growing stronger. I can fight back. I can stop them. But it may hurt." The human nodded. "I am ready." "You are not alone." The leader barked an order, and the warriors surged forward. The barn's wooden walls shook under their weight, and the moonlight reflected off their sharp weapons. The human moved slightly, blocking the girl with his body, positioning himself to defend her. Then it happened. The girl lifted her hands, trembling, and the energy within her exploded outward. Light filled the barn, bright and intense, stretching into every corner. The warriors froze, shielding their eyes against the radiance. A force unlike anything they had ever seen pushed against them, holding them back without physical contact. The human stayed close, guiding her, steadying her. "Focus," he said quietly. "You are stronger than fear. Use it." Her eyes glowed, and the light pulsed with her heartbeat. The barn walls shivered, dust falling from the beams. The warriors faltered, fear in their glowing eyes. They had underestimated her. They had thought she was weak, dying, useless. Now they faced a power that could destroy them all. The leader's staff sparked, trying to break through her force, but it bent backward under her energy. He realized too late that this girl, sick, fragile, unwanted, was no ordinary slave. She was something more. Something dangerous. Something they had never expected. The human stepped forward, knife ready, guiding her gently. "You can do it," he whispered. "Show them who you really are." The girl's voice rang out, strong now. "I am not yours. I am not nothing." The warriors staggered, pushed back by the power radiating from her. Their formation broke as panic spread through their ranks. The leader roared in frustration, but he could not move forward. Her energy created a barrier, an invisible wall that no weapon could penetrate. The human moved beside her, standing tall, ready to defend her if she faltered. But she did not falter. With each heartbeat, her power grew stronger. The chains of her past, the fear, the sickness, they all fell away, leaving only strength. The leader finally stepped back, realization dawning too late. "Impossible," he hissed. "She cannot." The human's voice cut through the tension. "She is not impossible. She is alive. She is more than you ever believed." The light from the girl pulsed one final time, a wave that pushed the remaining warriors back into the fields. Their glowing eyes faded as they retreated, fear and awe in their expressions. The night grew still again. The barn was silent except for the girl's soft breathing and the human's steady presence beside her. The girl collapsed onto the bed, exhausted but triumphant. The human knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said simply. She looked at him, tears slipping down her face. I never believed I could." He shook his head. "You always could. You just needed someone to see it, and now no one can stop you." Outside, the moonlight bathed the barn in silver. The danger had passed for now, but the girl knew this was only the beginning. She had power, yes, but she had something even greater. Trust, courage, and someone who would fight beside her. For the first time in her life, she felt truly free. Not just from chains, not just from fear, but from the weight of being unwanted. She had been chosen. She had been seen. And together with the human, she knew they could face whatever the galaxy sent next. The barn was quiet once more. The human sat back watching over her. The girl closed her eyes, breathing deeply, feeling the warmth of life and power flowing through her. Tonight they had survived. Tonight a choice had changed everything. And as the moon rose high, casting its silver light through the barn, one truth remained clear. Some lives are worth fighting for. Some choices change destinies. And some humans and aliens, when they stand together, can challenge even the darkest forces of the universe.